Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the October 14, 2024 meeting of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. My name is Chris Anderson. I'm the Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. Our Chair, Ethan Collier, is absent today. Without objection from any of the Planning Commissioners, I'd like to appoint Todd Lehman Chairman Pro Tem in the case that I have to leave the room for any reason. Hearing no objection, Todd, you are the Chair Pro Tem for this meeting. Let me go through some of the procedure and rules today. The RPA staff has reviewed each case and made a recommendation. Planning commissioners have reviewed the staff reports for all the cases on today's agenda and have had time to review the case information prior to this meeting. For those cases with staff recommendations to approve or approve with conditions, I will ask the staff if there is any opposition to the case or to the conditions. If there is none, unless a planning commission member requests a staff presentation, we will proceed to a voice vote. For staff recommendations to deny or for cases with opposition present, we will begin with a staff presentation. Following the staff presentation, commissioners will have the opportunity to question the staff. Then I will ask the applicant to come to the podium. The applicant will have 7 minutes to present their request. There will be a time clock displayed that will keep track of the remaining time. If there is any opposition, the opposition will have a total cumulatively of 9 minutes. That means whether there's one person or 3 people, the total is 9 minutes. So I may ask you to wrap up your remarks to be courteous to the people in line behind you who also want to speak. If a lot of people are here for one case, and I know that you are, you might think about deputizing 2 or 3 people max to come up and speak, since that way you can get your point across. I would ask that if you come to the podium, you not merely repeat what someone else has just said. Your presence here is also your voice. After the opposition speaks, the applicant will then have 2 minutes to respond. Commissioners will deliberate at that point and may or may not have questions for the applicant or opposition. Cases are decided by a simple majority vote. Once your case is finished, if you want to discuss with other parties, please exit out the back doors into the lobby and close the door so that the other cases can continue and the meeting can go on. A few other items. Please silence your phones now if they are not currently silenced. And just as a reminder, the Planning Commission has no authority over traffic regulations, building codes, or stormwater regulations. Today, please direct your comments from the podium to the Planning Commission only and not to the audience or the applicant. Only those at the podium will be recognized. Do not speak or shout from your seat. Once Planning Commission takes action, if you have any questions, please contact a staff member in the next several days. And for most requests other than subdivision plats, Planning Commission merely makes a recommendation to either the City Council or the County Commission. The official action to rezone a property or not will take place next month, either in this room for the County Commission meeting or at 1000 Lindsay Street down the street for the City Council meeting. We will now start with subdivisions. We have 4 cases that we heard last month, but there was a question about the public notice being proper. So in the interest of making sure we cover everything properly, we're going to rehear these 4 cases to start. Case number HCSD-24-13, final plat, the Cove at Thrasher Landing subdivision.
Staff heard this last month, and we have the same recommendation, a recommendation to approve. It meets all the subdivision requirements.
What's the will of the commission? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor, please respond by saying aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. 1 recusal, Mr. Byrd. Next up, case number HCSD-24-14. We have a recusal from Mr. Byrd. Emily, anything on this case?
The staff recommendation is the same to approve as last month. There was opposition that you heard last month as well, but the plat does meet all the subdivision requirements.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case number HCSD-24-15, the Alban Chase subdivision. Emily?
Same, staff recommend to approve.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Recusal from Mr. Byrd. Next case, SDP-24-31.
Staff recommend to approve.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Nathan, you good on that one? Great. All right, moving to new business subdivision and plats, or plats and variances. Case number HCSD-24-18.
Staff recommends to approve. We did not receive any opposition in writing to this case.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. Case number HCSD-24-19.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
We needed to check for opposition
We
for
did.
these new cases.
Thank you very much, Emily. Is
There
there any
was-
opposition on case 24-18?
We did receive written comments for case 24-19.
For the one we're about to do, yes. Yeah, I have that. Thank you. So in case 24-19, is the opposition present? Okay, we do have opposition present. Is the applicant present? All right. Applicant, why don't you come on up to the podium? State your name and address for the record, please.
Joseph Ingram, Ingram Gore Associates, and we're the engineer, and Dave Matthews is the surveyor on this project.
Okay. Do you want to tell us anything about this plat before I bring the opposition up?
It's A1. We're just working within the existing zoning on A1. We've got some hurdles on the property, like the existing creek. We have enough property to move through it. Save some time to address any concerns.
Okay, we have a question from Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Joe, are you working at, you said a stream on the property. Are we working with the TDEC at all?
It's the stream's already classified.
Mhm.
So the stream is already, the TDEC's already classified the stream. So now it's just a matter of, we'll do an ARAP and we'll move to construction plans.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're already-
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
State your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Gary Bowles, 5812 Mountain Pass Drive in Ottawa. Subdivision regulations state that the Planning Commission may deny a plat for any of the following reasons. A, failure of the plat to conform to the standards set out by these regulations. B, approval of the plat would be detrimental to the public safety, health, or general welfare. And C, approval of the plat would not be in the best interest of local government. The RPA is in the process of developing a comprehensive plan for Hamilton County. In the draft plan for Northeast Hamilton County, currently posted on its website, it notes that the north half of this area has limited access to centralized sewer infrastructure. And this portion of this area, which is east of Highway 58 and south of Greenwood Road, have experienced significant residential growth over the last decade. However, while Hunter Road is one of the critical connections between Harrison, Ottawa, and Collegedale, this area is not well suited for more high-density development. The draft plan further states that current capacity of sewers is managed by the WWTA with flows routed to the county's only treatment facility in Moccasin Bend, many miles away. The WWTA must also consider both connection as well as capacity issues for any development being considered in areas of the county. The draft plan states that a new treatment facility is planned to be in place in the next 8 years. However, calls to the WWTA don't reveal that as truth. And they also have said that sewage capacity is already at peak right now in this area. A look at page 22 of the posted area plan will show the extreme number of building permits over the last 10 years in this area, but this appears to have been ignored by RPA staff as it's not even mentioned in the discussion of the preliminary plat. So I recommend denial of the plat for the following reasons. The traffic load on Hunter Road is already over capacity, which is well documented. 33 more homes will add about 66 more cars. We need to stop until roads are addressed, not with just a plan, which I know There are plans that are being worked on, but with actual physical work. There's a difficult intersection very near the proposed development at Bell Mill and Mountain Pass with almost 200 more homes going in at Nature's Cove off Bell Mill, which my property abuts to that property. The sewer line ends at Bell Mill Road, so it have to be extended on up about 0.2 of a mile for this subdivision. My understanding from the new studies is, as I've said before, sewer capacity is already peaked, and this will just add more to the capacity problem. Although not in a flood zone or floodway, this land is low and flat and prone to localized flooding. I've forded that area many times. Paving all this land will just make it worse. Storm sewer infrastructure is lacking at best along Hunter Road. All this indicates disapproval based on it being detrimental to the public safety, health, and general welfare, and not in the best interest of local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Is there anyone else here in opposition on this case? Seeing none, Joseph, why don't you come back? You've got 2 minutes for your rebuttal.
Hi. So the sewer capacity on this was approved by WWTA about a year ago for 50 lots. And that's probably the end of it. I mean, I think we're at capacity out there. I think the development probably, just because of the way we're going to deal with it, probably help alleviate some of the flood issues. There's just some poor maintenance. There's a lot of the problem with that particular stream there. And this is a low density development. This is 2 units per acre. This is not, I mean, we're staying under the A1 zoning. So we're not asking for a jump. And then, you know, a traffic study for 66 cars on Hunter Road, we'd spend a lot of money and not get a lot of answers because it'd be a rock in the ocean. So, I mean, I'll answer any questions from the commission.
Seeing no questions, do I have a motion on this case? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Moving on to case HCSD-24-21.
This is for Prairie Pass Phase 7, and staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case HCSD-24-22. Recusal from Mr. Byrd.
This is for a final plat for the Inlet Phase 5 on Armstrong Road, and staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition for this case? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Case number HCSD-24-24.
This is a final plat for the Exuma subdivision on Bork Memorial Drive, and staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? We have one recusal from Ms. Adamson, and all those opposed. The ayes have it. Case HCSD-24-26.
This is a final plat, the retreat at Oakbrook on Whisper Winds Lane, and staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case HCSD-24-27, and Emily, you may want to note there was an issue with this.
Yes, this is preliminary plat for the Cannon Hickson Pike townhomes on Hickson Pike. The agenda has a typo with the staff recommendation to deny, but it actually should be approved because it does meet all the preliminary plat requirements.
Is there any opposition present to this case? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to case HCSD-24-28.
So final plat, Windhaven on 8319 Roy Lane. Staff recommends to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case SDV-806.
This is a variance for the Bend mixed-use development for various street sections of the subdivision regulations at 999 Riverfront Parkway, and staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Come on, don't fall asleep yet. We haven't even been here that long. All those in favor? All those opposed? We have one recusal from Mr. Byrd. Thank you. The ayes have it. Moving on to case SDP-24-32. All right, recusal from Mr. Byrd.
This is a preliminary plat associated with the previous variance for the Bend at 999 Riverfront Parkway. Staff is recommending to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case SDP-24-33.
A preliminary plat at Legacy Woods at 2341 Jenkins Road with a staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Moving to case SDP-24-34.
Preliminary plat at Scout View subdivision on 1605 East Boy Scout Road with a staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case SDP-24-35.
A preliminary plat, the Woodmore Villas, the 1200 block of Northmore Road, and staff is recommending to approve.
Any opposition present for this case? Commission? We have a motion. It's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case SDP-24-36, and I think there was an issue with this one as well.
This is a final plat. The original submission had the name for the subdivision as Peckinpah, but the applicant has revised the name of the plat to Ramsey Oaks, and it is in Hiskell Drive and Peckinpah Drive with a staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? Recusal from Mr. Byrd. I don't see any opposition. What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. SDP-24-39.
This is a final plat for Eagle Park Planned Unit Development Phase 5 on 8171 Pennant Place with a staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition here for this case? All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Recusal from Mr. Byrd. Case SDP-24-40.
Final plat, Maddox Square at 7548 Igo Gap Road with the staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition here for this case? I have a motion to approve that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. And the last subdivision of the day, SDP-24-41.
Final plat, the Nassau, 7503 Igo Gap Road, staff recommendation to approve.
Is there any opposition present for this case? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we're going to move into new business, rezonings, closures, abandonments, special permits, and amendments. I think I'm going to go a little bit out of order because could I see a show of hands? Who's here for Fairview, Hidden Harbor? That's what I thought. Emily, can we move that case up to number 1, please? We're going to hear that case now.
That's item 6 on the agenda.
Thank you. Case 20, 24-0160.
So this is application 2024-0160, located at 6552, 6560, 6562 Fairview Road in unincorporated Hamilton County. It's a special permit for a residential planned unit development. They're proposing 186 units on 66 acres for a density of 2.8 dwelling units per acre. This site did have a previous approved planned unit development in 2007, and that permit expired. And now the applicant has come forward with a new request for a new special permit. It is primarily surrounded all by single unit detached residential land uses. It's a picture of the site. Another picture of the site. Fairview Road. This is one of the single family dwellings north of the site. Another dwelling northwest of the site. This is in the Hickson North River Area Plan that was adopted in 2004, which recommends low density residential. This is the 2007 plan that was approved originally. And similarly, at that time, they were proposing a similar type of development with mixed use, or excuse me, multifamily cluster development. And they are proposing a similar plan today, with the exception that there was a lot that was purchased and that has been removed because it's no longer owned by the applicant. So staff is recommending that the requested R1 PUD base zoning is compatible with the adjacent zoning, since there are several R1 PUDs in the area. The proposed multi-unit residential units will introduce a higher intense land use and development form to the area. However, the site plan does provide a large amount of open space and trade for the clustered multi-unit residential units, which is then keeping the density in character for what is surrounding the site. Also, with the buffers and open space provided, will provide a woodland preserve around the site to buffer it from adjacent property. Staff is recommending approval with 4 conditions, which will help with open space, landscape buffers, building setbacks, and limiting the massing and building height to keep the development in character with the surrounding area. So staff recommends to approve with a 50-foot minimum building setback along the PUD perimeter, preservation of existing trees and vegetation in the 50-foot building setback area along the PUD perimeter, with the exception of ingress, egress to the site, walking trails or paths, and removal of dead or diseased species. No more than 11 attached units per single massed building, and maximum building height of 2.5 or 35 feet. High-rise multifamily buildings are prohibited. And these conditions have been slightly modified, but are similar to the conditions that staff recommended in 2007 with that special permit as well.
Any questions from the commission for staff? Okay, Nathan.
Does the area plan define low density when it makes that recommendation?
It says 1 to 5 units an acre, and it does say that there can be some exceptions made for patio homes, 2 to 4 unit homes if density is compatible.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Emily, with the expiration of the previous PUD, that reverts this property back to just a standard R1 in the county
Correct.
With a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size.
That is correct.
Do you have a count on what can be built there right now without any action by this body or the county commission?
I don't, but I could try to get a rough calculation if in a moment if you would like.
I would like to know what could be allowed at this time. I think it's probably relevant if we could
Darien says about 7 units an acre. Do you know how many? She's going to calculate.
470. Now there. But there are steep slopes on this site. I imagine. Do we have any idea? And I'm getting into an engineering question at this time. What that number actually may be, given steep slope consideration?
I think the applicant could probably answer that question better.
And I'll hold that question for the applicant, Chairman. Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Let's have the applicant come up. Is the applicant present? Okay.
Somebody's going to take ownership.
So who is the applicant? Who applied to us for a reason? Okay. 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 Well, I think I need to hear from you if you plan to develop the property. So please state your name and address for the record, and you have 7 minutes.
Nathan Moore. My address is 506 Ladd Avenue in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So we came onto this property about 3 months ago. Started looking at what was there, what had been done previously. One of the major issues was the sewer, which we've talked with an engineering firm, Berg, here in town. Barge engineers are going over doing a pump system for this to be able to. There's also land on the other side of Fairview that we currently have as well in escrow with Mr. Rapport. So we are going to take and actually do a pump system to get that over to the actual Hickson Pike. Down on Hickson Pike, there's accessibility down there. We have land or easement all the way through there so that we do not impact any of the surrounding neighborhoods as far as the sewer system. We've looked at the recommendations when it came down to it. We were already planning on doing major setbacks. We plan on keeping at least 24 to 25 acres of the natural growth in the area, other than putting nature paths in there, about 5 to 7 miles of walking paths, nature paths of that type. Cleaning up the underbrush, making it so that it's safe for somebody to walk through and be there, but without taking out any of the major growth trees. As far as heights or the maximum per unit, we're doing 10. And that's only down low by the actual lake in the very bottom of what is the bowl here. The only, question or concern we have with that is the fact that with the 2.5 stories, the way the condos are designed down there with the garage underneath, it's technically a 3-story building. 35 is right around the recommend. We'll be right in that 35 to 38 foot range. So that would be the only thing we would ask for, a little bit of a variance or a little bit of leeway on. In designing those. We've gone through, I know they did previously, as far as the impact on the road, the water's available there. As far as watershed or causing any issues downstream, we've got multiple ponds, the main lake that's already on there. We have multiple ponds and pools, so there won't be any sediment. There won't be anything running down from the watershed in the area, including coming off of Fairview, I'm sorry. And the other things, as far as heights, especially on the upper slopes. I know it was asked about the upper slopes. The biggest thing on the heights there is from the street side where these are only 2 stories tall. Where the slope is, you end up with a walkout basement story that's down below, but it's all facing down towards the lake. It's not making it taller as far as the surrounding neighborhood.
I'm the architect on the project, and if there's any specific questions. My name is March Chadwick, architect. 232 Jarnigan Avenue in North Chattanooga, 37405. Like we have basically resubmitted a pre-approved plan. We have water retainage with an existing quarry there. We're planning to have more water sources, to pool the water that would be potential runoff. There's about 200-foot drop from the Fairview Road to the lower point of the site. As Nathan pointed out, not included in this plan, there is another 40 acres on the other side of Fairview 28 acres on the other side of Fairview that we have engineered to take the sewage from the site and pump it up over Fairview down towards Hickson Pike. So that's in it with our engineering team that's not here today, March in civil and landscape.
Well, I also forgot to mention there's going to be between 4 and 5 acres of water surface as well on top of the 24 acres that we're keeping of natural growth. So we're keeping close to 30 acres of the natural area, natural landscape with that as well.
We're aware there is some concern of traffic and the amount of density that we're proposing, but we're far under what the allowable is. We're at 2.8, and we're allowed with this proposed. It is currently R1. Am I right about that? Okay. So I think we're allowed three per unit. Oh, 7. Okay, excuse me.
Yeah, so 7. So we're less than half of what. There's also going to be a clubhouse, about 8,000 square foot clubhouse that's going to have gym, meeting space, that type of stuff in it for the community. It will be gated at the opening coming in and out of it. And then there's a lot of public trails. There's also a lot of parking outside besides the garage space we're providing for each unit. Each unit will have, for the condos, will have a 1-car garage, and for the townhouses, we'll have a 2-car garage involved as well.
Okay, anything further from the applicant for your presentation, or can I go to questions from the commission now?
We're good.
Mr. Lehman?
Yeah, you'd mentioned engaging barge design on some sewer. Have they been engaged, at least from a site perspective, connection to Fairview, any safety concern? I mean, there are some safety concerns on Fairview, and also looking at some existing traffic volume and speeds. Have they looked at any detailed design relative to Fairview and connection and access, or are you waiting for rezoning to move into your detailed engineering?
So with the engineers, they were previously involved in the project when it was actually going to involve the surrounding community, running sewer through them. So there's a lot that way. As far as the traffic, we have not engaged them on that yet. We have moved the entrance from where it shows on this map to a low spot, so to where you have a lot better vision. And we're also going to create about a 200-foot from each side extra lane on our land that'll so people turning in and out will actually be able to pull out and see where they're going without just pulling into traffic.
Okay, just to clarify, so Barge did this prior in 2007, and so there's been quite a bit of time between the two.
We're in very good communication with them, and we plan to re-engage with them.
Well, obviously, a lot of that information, at least from a detail perspective, is a permitting issue, and just want to make sure that you've at least started having those conversations about decel lanes, left turn lanes, safety improvements, access, site distance, which you mentioned. Thank you.
Well, I would agree with you that Fairview Road is. I mean, I was there when I posted some of the signs, and there were some moving cars that were moving pretty fast down that road. So there's some concern.
Mr. Chair, can I add that if the applicant just mentioned that they are moving the access into the site from what's shown on this plan, if this PUD plan gets approved as is, it could require a major change in the future where it would have to come back through this body as well as county commission to make that change?
Yes.
Can I answer to that?
Sure.
So what I meant by it is where it's at, they had it going just barely on the hill. You're talking about maybe 20 feet. It's actually the way the two roads come in. It's not clarified the exact position on there. I was just stating at the actual area. We spoke with neighbors from across the street. For one, it pointed right at his house, which meant a couple hundred spotlights in his window every day. So where it's at, it's safer to have it just right in the crux of the bottom. That's the only difference. I think it's almost there. I think it's about a matter of about 20 feet.
I mean, we have a fairly large buffer to address some of these concerns of heavily moving traffic. I mean, I don't know if we could make a turning lane there, but we definitely want to address all of these questions that the community would have.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission for the applicant? Barry?
Yeah, I think we Commissioner Ledford asked, but obviously you can do 455 with the math, but clearly you can't do that. Have you looked at how much you can do just straight R1 right now without being here, I guess is what my question is.
On the site safely, around 2 to 220 would be the max you could do. It would pack it in. There's basically the surrounding neighborhood on the northeast side. Part of the hillside home down is owned by the people who own the homes up there. On the other side, it's owned right up to the back of them, right at the edge of the ridge. We're trying to keep everything down in the bowl and keep it, I call it a bowl. It's, the watershed of the area, but we're trying to keep it so it's down inside so that nothing's being built that's going to obstruct views or anything of that nature. So the way it's planned, the way it's designed here, the biggest variable is the condos more than the townhomes. The townhomes, there's 21 buildings. They're spaced out. It was a rock quarry, so there's a lot of ledging or high wall building already involved in that area. So there's a lot of areas that have been created flat. And so it would be, I would say 2 to 220 would be the most you could do without doing any major shoring or walling.
Any other questions from the commission for the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You mentioned talking with the neighbors across the street. Have you held a thorough or comprehensive community meeting with the neighbors and the folks that have come down here at 1 o'clock Monday morning?
No, but
Or afternoon to discuss this, and have you also included Commissioner Ken Smith in those conversations?
We have not had any type of formal community discussion yet at all.
we're not opposed to that. I mean, if there's
Right.
something that we can.
Absolutely.
Is this project a vote today detrimental to any kind or sensitive to a time frame? Well, other than closing documents.
Well,
There's there's a close of escrow is the big thing. We have earnest money up as well. We have those types of things. And part of that escrow process is getting certain approvals. That's the only thing it would impact that way. But
Sure. I would stress that given people over money would be a really good opportunity
Yeah.
for you to meet with neighbors before actually we took action on this, because I think there's some interesting conversations or questions still with your site plan.
Okay.
That need to be hammered out. And I was asking that question because I would really like to see dialogue with the county commissioner for this area, and also the good folks who came out here. I think they deserve that.
absolutely.
And that's just my humble opinion coming from the city. Last question is, because in the city, we have a steep slope vegetation component when we're dealing with slopes over 30. Do we have anything like that in the county? Todd or Mike, that would, okay. The developable acres, is really interesting to me, because I know we can run the math on it, but we have to take into account obviously slopes and factors like that. I think there's a lot more work to be done here. Understanding that number, and thank you, Commissioner, for bringing that up. I think it's really good for folks to know what you can do by right and what you're asking to do. And I think that's a conversation that's worth having in my opinion. Thank you. Understood.
Any other questions for the applicant from the commission? If you two could have a seat, I'm going to ask the opposition to come up now. Maybe not all 100 of you. Okay. Let's let everybody line up before you start, please.
Absolutely.
So there's 4 people in line. I just want to say that you have 9 minutes between the 4 of you. So please state your name and address and begin.
Ryan Burgo, 6355 Sea Haven Drive. Good afternoon, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Board Secretary at Hidden Harbor Community, which is just adjacent to the planned development. Behind me here is President Marty Malone. We're here today representing the residents of Hidden Harbor, but also the residents of Bay Point and Marina Cove, because we spoke to them as well. Hidden Harbor, oldest HOA in the state of Tennessee. So, we care about our neighbors. We have a hefty dose of Southern hospitality, obviously have a Northern voice, but don't be fooled. The reason that we are here today is because we care so much about our neighbors. As it's currently planned, this new development is going to be dangerous, far too dense. And, they mentioned that they're below the allowed density. Councilman Ledford, I think you sort of alluded to this. Just because the density is allowed doesn't mean it's actually a good idea here. So we think there's going to be significant safety risks on Fairview Road in particular, and potentially set a precedent for future building and zoning that we don't think is appropriate here. So I want to be clear, we're not trying to stop this development. We're here because we have legitimate serious concerns about the safety and tenability of this development. And we care about the people in this area. It's because of this also that we found it so concerning that the initial signs for the project were posted and promptly disappeared. We obviously can't incriminate anyone, right? But you know as well as we do that the removal of those kind of signs is common tactic and it's unequivocally unethical. Clearly indicates an intent to deceive the community, and that type of tactic is not in accordance with the way we live. It's not in accordance with the way that we think our community ought to behave. So it certainly appears to us that someone was attempting to hide the potential dangers of the proposed development because they're aware that they exist. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Marty, and he can walk through our specific concerns in more detail.
Thanks, Ryan. Marty Malone, 1804 Rock Bluff Road, Hickson, Tennessee. I'm the president of the HOA. I would first like to thank you for having us today. And as the Councilman Ledford was saying, we think a postponement would be a great idea of at least a month to allow us to have a meeting and let our voice be heard. Next, I wanted to discuss zoning and density, as y'all brought up a lot of our concerns. The developer seeking to go from A1 and R1 to A1 R1 PUD. This is a significant change that goes against the long-standing R1 single-family residential zoning with detached houses that has defined our neighborhood and the Big Ridge area for decades. R1 is currently the only residential zoning present on the entire Fairview Road area. This omnipresent R1 zoning was put in place for a good reason. It preserves the low-density, single-family character of our community. The PUD zoning would allow for much higher density housing, and the developer could potentially pack in townhomes, apartments, and other multi-unit structures at too high a scale. So remaining zoned R1 is simply not enough. We ask the developer be held to single-family detached homes that are in character with the entirety of the Big Ridge area to preserve lower density that is supportable by the existing roads. We don't want the nature and feel of our neighborhood and community on the ridge fundamentally altered. But most importantly, it would be untenable due to the tight two-lane road architecture with few roads leading up and down the ridge and no way of expanding these roads. Allowing this type of rezoning will without a doubt set a dangerous precedent, and before long, the area's beautiful and cherished single-family detached home character will be lost forever, replaced by a more crowded urban feel. And urban isn't bad, but a city like Chattanooga and its surrounding area can't have exclusively urban living. It needs single-family living with a soft character and neighborly charm. Our county needs to retain areas like ours, the oldest HOA community in Tennessee, because it's part of the character that brings people to our area. Single-family community is what has drawn many of us to live here, and it's what has fostered the tight-knit, family-friendly atmosphere that Chattanooga needs and cherishes. Okay, traffic and road conditions. You may know the only entrance to this development would be located at a very precarious part of Fairview Road. The proposed entrance and exit is in the middle of an enormously steep blind hill. This is an area that is already notoriously dangerous for drivers, poor visibility, and a tendency for speeding owing to the steepest, blindest decline found anywhere on the entirety of an already naturally hilly Fairview Road. There have been accidents in this location in the past, and this development greatly increases that potential. In addition, the entire stretch of Fairview Road, including the few roads that lead up to this development, are narrow, winding, and ill-equipped to handle a significant increase in volume already. These are two-lane country roads with no shoulders and steep drops. The idea of an obscene density of R1 PUD housing, such as condos and apartments, adding hundreds or even more than 1,000 new residents and their guests trying to access this development, is simply terrifying for our citizens. And quite frankly, it should be equally terrifying to you, the committee, and our elected officials, as the blood is essentially on your hands, so to speak. The developer needs to demonstrate how they will mitigate these very real dangers, and I appreciate what they said so far, whether it's through road improvements, traffic mitigation measures, and other proposed solutions. At a minimum, the developer must be compelled by you to install turn lanes or a deceleration lane, reduce speed limits, and implement other engineering solutions to ensure safety. There must be a traffic impact study and a site distance study completed for this development. In fact, they're required by statute, but we want to make sure these steps do not get skipped. Ultimate,
We have 3 people behind you and 3 minutes remaining. I just want to call your attention to that.
I'll do my best because I have serious concerns, and I'm not sure who came up with 9 minutes, but that seems really short
Well,
to me.
it's been that way for many, many years.
Yeah, I'm sure there's reasons for that. All right, environmental impact. A lot of these were mentioned, and I appreciate that. We do think TVA and EPA needs to be involved since it's coming from a quarry. An environmental impact study, I think, is also likely prescribed. We are downhill from all this. In fact, the gully that comes from this goes right through my back, at the back of my backyard. So we want to make sure all that is addressed as well as the sewer. And I appreciate it being mentioned. In closing, single family detached homes, safety and traffic issues, proper sewer and water management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If the next person could come up.
I'm Jim Rochelle, 1734 Mountain Bay Drive in Hickson. And my property is the one that the little niche in there where I made the comment. Well, this development was done back in 2007. And the big issue at that time was the sewer. It was, in fact, the original proposal was rejected by the Hidden Harbor people because they were proposing to set the pumping station down behind the swimming pool. So the current approach running over Fairview, it was the basis for approval. So that needs to be put into the basis for approval. I will not go on a whole lot more on the Fairview Road traffic. My suggestion that one of the suggestions that I had was to put in some three-way stalls because there's so much traffic. Very dangerous, adding more people coming into Fairview that something's going to have to be done, and we're going to have a lot of accidents. That's it for me.
Thank you very much. Come on up, and I'm going to give you about 30 extra seconds because
Virginia Merritt, 6415 Harbor Master. I'm not going to talk about traffic or infrastructure. They're wanting to put multifamily homes in our neighborhood is basically what's happening. There are no multifamily homes anywhere on the ridge. Like Man Forrest Toll said, they're all single family detached homes. Townhomes, duplexes, whatever they want to call these, are very susceptible to short-term rentals and to be corporate owned, which is something that is becoming great. Corporate owned rentals has increased, I think it's like 300% just in the last couple of years nationwide. So we don't want rentals inside our neighborhood either.
you can finish.
Thank you. So that's the biggest thing with townhomes, duplexes, and there are discrepancies on the whole map considering the LLC they created, the addresses they created, and all that needs to be looked at as well. But I'll let him.
Come on up. If you can do about 30 seconds.
Sure. That's Daryl Arundel, 6558 Fairview Road. I'm one of the only ones that is on Fairview, and I know that I've talked to my neighbors, and I know we've talked about traffic, but one thing that you need to know about that is right at the edge of my property is a blind hill. And to just add to the traffic issue, there's been multiple people killed there over the years already. And that's my biggest concern, is that there's just too many people going to be coming out of that dip, hitting that blind hill. And I'm not sure what you can do about that, but that's what my neighbors want you to know, is that blind hill is just so freaking dangerous.
Thank you, Mr. Arundel. Any questions for anybody in the opposition? Hearing none, I'll bring the applicant back up for a 2-minute rebuttal.
we obviously thank the community very much for their concerns, their neighborhood, and we want to be a good neighbor. And as I mentioned earlier, the Blind Hill is an issue, and some of the traffic that is moving up and down the road. Now, I've been a citizen of New York City for 25 years. I'm originally from East Tennessee, and I relocated here, bought a home. I split my time between the two cities. But one thing about traffic in New York is that there is an extremely high density, and that can be controlled when people are aware. So I'm not a traffic engineer, but I do believe that there are some solutions that we can provide to relinquish these concerns of traffic on Fairview and make everyone happy. And as far as the sewer, thank you for that address, Mr. Rochelle. But we have done serious studies with the water management and sewage management with our engineers, barge design. Do you want to say something, Nathan?
Yeah, the biggest thing, and traffic was a big thing. The one neighbor I did speak with, that was the biggest issue. The hill is dangerous. There's actually a memorial spot right there at the base of the hill where, a couple people did pass away, young people driving too fast on the road. There's a lot of things that can be done at that location to, I don't know if it's slow traffic, but the number one thing would be slow the traffic down, because it's most people, if you're standing there, are well above the speed limit. Doing, a slow down lane, being able to do that, especially with that hill there, that's a major part of what we're looking at doing. There's enough space on the land to be able to do that. There's enough space right through there to do it. There's concern of 2 telephone poles, which can be moved if necessary, to create a long enough slow down lane for both deceleration and acceleration on the property. As far as the density, we're not trying to take away from the single family home aspect of it. Let me do that. The biggest thing I think we need to do is just have a large meeting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just have a large meeting, set with everybody, go over all the concerns, and make sure that we are doing the best we can to make sure our impact is minimal.
So I just want to say there's several things and concerns that have been brought up here that whether if we approved it, we didn't approve it still has to go to the
County Commission.
Yes, a lot of your concerns have to be the transportation department has to approve the egress, no matter what we say here. But my suggestion to you would be, because you obviously have a room full of people that have a lot of concerns, and I think what I have heard is legitimate concerns that probably you could at least hear their concerns and account for as many of them as you can. If I was in your shoes, which I have been many times, I would ask for a 60-day or 30-day, but if I feel like you're going to need 60, to set up a time to meet with people, hear their concerns, and then try to work a plan that would accommodate you and them. But you need to request that if I were you. That's what I would do.
Absolutely, yes. We'll determine whether 60 or 30 is in our investors' interest, but
you need us. You're going to have to decide that real fast, because
we have to do that in this meeting.
Yeah.
All
if
right.
you want that.
Well, I think 60 days is a fair amount of time, right?
I move to approve. I move for a 60-day deferral.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded, but I believe Councilman Ledford, did you want to ask a question or speak, since we're on debate of the motion now?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that. Thank you. That's why I brought that concept up in our initial conversation, because I'm sensing, I've seen this enough, that there needs to be a lot more conversation before I think it even comes here. A word of advice, though, as much as I love New York City, I was having lunch at Rockefeller Center this time yesterday.
Oh, no.
I wouldn't bring up New York City when
I know. I know. Hey.
Look, hey, there's a reason why I'm here. You know what I mean? So no,
Yeah,
my point is that
here, I wouldn't bring that up. But anyway,
well, my point is that I've experience with design, and these are solutions that I think we can provide with high quality design.
of, the highest quality
I
design.
understand.
And
I understand. And we're not in debate. This is
one
my
of
comment.
the
This is-
one other question
hold on.
one other thing I'd like to
No,
mention.
I'm sorry,
This
Councilman
is-
Ledford has
this-
the floor.
Sir, I have the floor. This isn't a debate. This isn't New York. As much as I love New York, I was very happy to be home because we converse with our neighbors. We know each other. It's something I miss dearly when I visit New York, is being able to have these conversations with our neighbors. And these folks took time out of the day to come here. And I appreciate that as a young man up there watching our civil process right now that I'm taking note of, because thank you for being here. Because this is really important for you to see how we can work together as a community, work through some issues that we have conversations, and hopefully come out at the other end with something that is compromised in nature. But I just wanted to say that we have single family detached. I want to make sure that we understand that. I really wish an engineer was here to help answer some of these questions, even though some of these questions are in the next stage. It's critical for us to understand what actually is allowed, because you could make a decision to build, and the good folks out here may not have to say so. It would be a by right, and I'm speaking to you all now. Understand that, please understand that, Marty. Please understand that. So when you have your meeting, know what those numbers are, because you referenced a low or higher density. If for some reason there's a higher density by right, you're going to want to know that, brother. Okay. The rest of it is very important as far as engaging with Commissioner Smith, who you said you have not engaged with, and I think that is also extremely critical. So thank you. The motion is on the floor, and I yield to the vote.
Any other questions before we vote? All in favor of the motion to defer 60 days? All those opposed? Case is deferred 60 days. Thank you. For those of you who are here from this case, if you'd like to stay for the meeting, we welcome you. If you are exiting, please do so now out the back, and let's have conversations in the lobby, not in this room. If everyone who is leaving could please leave the room and have the conversations outside. Nathan, thank you for getting those doors. Let's go back to the top of the agenda for new business rezonings. Let's do case 2024-0144.
This is a case to rezone from R2. Oh, actually, before I start, I do want to remind commissioners as well as the public that this is our first meeting where we will hear for the new City of Chattanooga zoning ordinance and new zones. So just if there are any additional questions, happy to help and as we navigate through the new code.
Great, thank you.
This is an application to rezone from R2 residential zone to new CC commercial corridor zone for a hotel on 2.55 acres. There was a recent zoning case earlier this year, just to the south of the site on Browns Ferry Road, that was rezoned from R2 to C2 with conditions. The site is surrounded by a mix of uses, including commercial, there's a hotel, single unit residential, and a school nearby. It's a picture of the site. And then the building to the left is where the zoning case was earlier this year. Another picture of the site. This is a strip commercial north of the site. Hotel south of the site. Commercial gas station southeast of the site. And these are some of the single family dwellings that are south of the site on Browndale Drive. This is in the 2003 Lookout Valley Land Use Plan, which recommends neighborhood commercial. Zoomed in area. This is the site plan for the proposed hotel with access off Browns Ferry Road. The applicant did also submit a rendering. And staff's findings are that the request is compatible with the adopted land use plan, adjacent land uses and development forms with conditions. The conditions prohibiting access to Mountain View Drive and Browndale Drive, and prohibiting some of the uses to limit nuisances to adjacent residential property, which was similar to that 2024 case that was heard earlier this year. So staff recommends to approve with conditions of no liquor stores, storage facilities, and adult-oriented establishments, and no vehicular access to Mountain View Drive and Browndale Drive. And staff did receive written opposition to this case and also heard from the applicant that they wish to defer 30 days.
Is the applicant present today? Is that correct? Okay. What's the will of the commission? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. We're deferred for 30 days. Thank you. Case 2024-0155. Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to case MR 2024-0156. Is there any opposition present for this case? We do have opposition present. Okay. Emily?
Yes, the
Let's hear it.
staff did receive opposition in writing as well. I'll go through the case. This is for mandatory referral 2024-0156 in the unopened 300 block of Ann Street. It's a mandatory referral to close an unopened right-of-way. And the reason for the request is for a single unit detached development and to reduce land disturbance. The site or the unopened right-of-way does have some topography. There is aerial view surrounded by vacant land and single-family residential homes. It's near Franklin and Ruth Street. There's a picture of the site. Another view of the site. So there's a view of Franklin and Ruth Street. The site you can see just to the far left with the yellow sign. North of the site, some single family homes. The site would be to the right. West of the site, some of the single family homes in the area. And south of the site, some new neighbors to the North Shore and Sylvan Park. This is the site plan the applicant submitted showing the right-of-way closure or surrounding some existing lots of record. And the applicant did speak with staff that they are considering reconfiguring these lots to a different configuration, which was also part of the request for the right-of-way closure, and to eliminate the disturbance to the rear of the site. And staff felt that the request meets the City of Chattanooga right-of-way closure and abandonment policy. They are recommending to approve. I do also want to add that there were some comments that staff received from the opposition about the date that the yellow notice sign was posted, and the applicant indicated that they have record of it being posted on October 4th, which is less than the required 15-day public notice requirement. So it's the discretion of Planning Commission that due to that they can defer the application if they choose.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions for staff? Okay, let's have the applicant come up.
My name is Jose Ferraz at 310 Nye Drive, Chattanooga, Tennessee. So this right-of-way abandonment application placed by our client, imposes a new type of development for that area, which we currently hold a LDP permit. We are allowed to break ground as of today. But as going through that process, we recognize a new configuration for these homes that would, disturb less land, preserve more of that area. And that's why we are seeking this right-of-way abandonment. Our main aspect of this, it is to decrease the disturbance and provide a better development for the area. We recognize the fact that we placed the sign only about 10 days or so ago, and we are comfortable of deferring by 30 days if that's the motion that you guys see needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. If the opposition could come up and line up here behind the podium, we'll see how many people we've got before you start, please.
Hi,
Please go ahead.
my name is Diane O'Sullivan. I live on 818 Liberty Street in North Chattanooga, and I'm here representing the North Chattanooga Neighborhood Association. We held a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and we had 30 members of our neighborhood association there to talk about this development and another situation on Hamilton. And we really want to understand. I appreciate all of you that talked about the Fairview situation, about the developer working with the community. We have had no information on what the plans are for this land. They talk about the plat being what it is, but they're going to want to change it. We don't know what the homes are going to be. We don't know the full number of how they're going to subdivide that property. And until everything is very clear and the impacts on traffic, the impacts on Fraser is not a fully 2-lane road right now. It's 1 3/4, and there's drop-offs on the side. There's no sidewalks, and we really appreciate that in North Chattanooga, that we don't have high traffic on some of these narrow roads. And now to have a neighborhood that's going to dump out at the intersection of Frank and Ruth is a very big concern for us. So we would like to really understand what this developer has planned, what it means for the steep slope that it exists in that little piece of land that he's talking about. I don't understand the steep slope ordinance, if there is even one in the Chattanooga city. So how's that going to be addressed? So I don't think the city should turn over city-owned land in the form of unopened alleys to developers without a full plan that everybody can say, this makes sense from a traffic perspective, a sewerage perspective, a home plan in terms of the density that would be going in there. So those are our concerns right now. We also have you saw the goats in the picture. That's at the Sylvan Bird Sanctuary. They're getting rid of non-invasive species for us. And that is very close to this property. And people could use this property as another way to access that, to make more safe places for adults and children to pass to these amenities in North Chattanooga. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Finnegan Spencer. I live at 704 Franklin Street, Chattanooga 37405. Matter of fact, every one of those pictures could have been taken from my front porch because I live right next to it. I'd like to make a note. That is the bus stop for our neighborhood kids. Every morning, 10 children including my granddaughter line up there. And that's the bus stop. That will be directly across from Ann Street. I'm not going to get into safety and children and sewers because at the beginning of this meeting, y'all expressed that y'all don't get into that either. Well, I'm going to get you real quick. It's my qualifications of why I'm able to tell you what I'm going to tell you right now. I am a certified TDOT inspector for RK&K out of Maryland. For the last 5 years, I have been the lead inspector on the I-75-24 expansion, phase 1 and phase 2. I know my dirt. I know my land. I know how to keep dirt on the land, and I've had experience with a company, which is the applicant. They're not a fair neighbor. They don't take care of the land. They don't care about us. They put sediment everywhere. They build cheap homes and they move out. That's been my experience working with Green Tech in Chattanooga. I want to build on my land. They can build on their land. Let's just make sure it's done right. And let's don't fall for close the street. If y'all don't mind, I'll take that. Sign it over to me. I'll be a better neighbor. But don't give it to a developer so that they can open up on each end an entrance. Don't give it to a developer that ain't going to tell you that's what the plan is. It's common sense. We can't park 2 cars in these streets. The water's not going to work. If they're willing to build the infrastructure, spend the money on the sewer so the stormwater can take it, if they're willing to build us the things that we need, not at taxpayers' cost, I'll stand in the corner if they're willing to do it right. It's their land. They should be able to do what they want with it. That city land, that's ours. Don't give it to them. Thank
you. Sir, come on up. You've got about 4 minutes.
Yes. Hello, my name is Jack Fortune. I live at 133 Colville Street, right up the road from where this tract is. And I want to echo what's been said before, that our main objection to any change is that we see this as a stealthy way and an incremental way to get a development in place that we know nothing about. Most of that land surrounding it's privately owned, and we can't prevent development, but we'd like to be involved with what they're going to do there. The neighborhood streets are very narrow. There's no sidewalks in most of that area, and we live there. The other point I'll bring up is that I am a member of the neighborhood association, and we did reach out to contact the developer about this project, and the developer did not respond. So I think that sort of speaks for itself as well. We don't think the time is right to give away city land for some use that nobody really knows what it's going to be yet and what the impact might be. Thank you.
Okay, that's all the opposition. If we could have the applicant come back, you've got up to 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Thank you, everybody, for showing up here and placed their concerns. I just want to reiterate the fact that that we currently hold that permit for about 14 homes to be developed in this, giving access to this right-of-way currently, with the project showing full development of the right-of-way within city standards. But again, we are understandable about the situation of the sign postage not being done correctly, and we are comfortable deferring for 30 days. Thank you.
Councilman Ledford, do you have a motion?
I have a motion to defer 30 days and to also encourage community discussion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. We're deferred for 30 days. Case MR 2024-0157.
Is there any opposition here for this case at the 2100 block of Rossville Avenue? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Case number 2024-0159. Is there any opposition present for this case? We do have opposition present. Emily, can you give us the staff report?
Yes, and staff did receive written comments in opposition as well. So case 2024-0159, to rezone from R1 residential zone to the new RN13 residential neighborhood zone for a single unit detached subdivision, approximately 5.5 acres with 25 units and 5 dwelling units an acre. In the new RN13 residential zone, the 3 designates 3,000 square foot lots and 30-foot lot frontage, which is different than the former R1 zone, which would either allow a lot of record, which could be a smaller lot if it was platted prior to 1961, or in this case, if it's a new subdivision, they would be 7,500 square feet and 60-foot lot width. There is no recent.
Emily, can I interject? Wouldn't it be RN16 in the new zoning?
Yes,
So the new would be 6,000.
that's correct. You're right. I was citing the current zone, but yes, it will be equivalency mapped to RN16. Yes, which would be 6,000 square foot lot and 60-foot lot width. And there has not been any recent zoning history in the area. It's all primarily R1. And it's also surrounded by single unit detached residential dwellings. This is the view of the site from Parkway Drive, the site from Bonnie Oaks. Southwest of the site, Parkway Drive and Bonnie Oaks intersection. Single family dwelling west of the site. Some more detached dwellings on Parkway Drive. This is in the historic River to Ridge Area 3 plan adopted in 2020, which recommends suburban residential. To zoom in of that, which is basically detached single family dwellings. So this is the applicant's proposed site plan with RN13. It's my understanding the applicant requested that because they'd like to do 40-foot wide lots at approximately 5,000 square feet, but there is not a 40-foot wide new zone. It would be the RN13 versus the RN15, which would be 50-foot wide lots. But the applicant can explain more of that. But then they also provided an additional site plan for comparison. This is what the site could look like if developed under RN16. So primarily the difference is the slots. Oh, my mouse isn't working. Right down in here, they're showing more lots, whereas there they're showing it as an open space area. So the request is not compatible with the adjacent development form and Area 3 plan recommendations due to the higher density that's proposed. The RN13, as mentioned, would allow a 3,000 square foot lot and 15-foot setbacks. And there are no other 3,000 square foot lots in the immediate vicinity of the site. The property will be equivalency mapped to RN16, and this is more appropriate at this location. So staff is recommending to deny.
Any questions for staff? Hearing none, let's have the applicant come forward. You have 7 minutes.
Great. Good afternoon, Alan Jones of Stone Creek Consulting. Address is 1112 Wilmouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. I do want to start out by prefacing with I have been in communication with the president of the Battery Heights Neighborhood Association, which is across the street, as well as Councilwoman Coonrod. Just unfortunate, due to scheduling conflicts, we did not have a neighborhood meeting prior to this. We will be meeting this coming Thursday for a neighborhood meeting with the Battery Heights Neighborhood Association. So I do want to let that be known. So if the opposition and the Planning Commission is acceptable, I guess I can continue the trend of the day. asking for a 30-day deferral if that is deemed necessary. But just to give a little bit of history of this site, so I represent the developer who's owned this property for a little while. The original intention was to actually rezone or keep this R1 and do a residential PUD back in June, but that's when the city put kind of a moratorium on any rezoning processes within the city while the new zoning took place. And so with the residential PUD, we were requesting the 5 units per acre, which is 25 lots. And I think as you showed earlier on the previous plan, with the new RN16 that will come into effect in November, we can still develop 25 lots on this property, but we'd like to do this in a really more respectable manner by having a little bit variability in the lot sizes and producing some more common open space that's undeveloped, as shown here in this plan. But I'll leave any comments for the opposition and then answer anything after that.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Alan, am I getting this correct in assuming you're wanting the RN13? For those of you following along, that's our new 3,000 square foot lots. 6,000 is what the equivalency map would recommend. So just that's what the 3 and the 6 is. So I know this stuff gets confusing, but you're using, instead of trying to do a PUD, retain the same density level that would be allowed in RN16, but by using 3, create more buffers, landscaping, more areas undisturbed. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, with the RN16 and our proposed RN13, it's the same number of lots. We're not asking for additional density with this rezone request. It's so that we can provide additional buffers and just give the developer some variability in lot sizes so that we can, I think, create a better development for this lot.
So you can achieve what the old PUD process would allow through
the new zoning.
Through conditions now.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I'm trying to make sure I understand what your intent is.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for the meeting comments.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions from the commission? Alan, I have one.
Yes, sir.
In this plat that we're looking at now, where you've clustered your development with smaller lots, but are getting the same number, you've got a very large open space lot. Will that be owned by the HOA? Will that still be owned by you? What's the plan for that?
It'll be owned by the HOA.
So the people who live in
this community will have control and access of that. Yes, sir.
Okay. I wanted to ask that in case there was a question of, well, is he just going to come back and subdivide this later? But
right. Yeah. In the plat, if this moves forward in the plat, that'll be recorded as a community lot. And also we can offer up a condition to ensure that we don't exceed that 25 units or 25 lots that we're asking for, and just have a max of 5 units per acre as a condition to go along with it.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll hear from the opposition. If you'd line up behind the podium. Please begin.
Hi, Hi, Chattanooga. Unfortunately, right now, we just don't have enough information. We do not. And it is unfortunate that Mr. Jones could not make our neighborhood association meeting that we invited him to. And we do have another one scheduled, but we have questions. We mostly have questions. Like, we have questions about traffic impact. We have questions about civil engineering generally, the proposed plan, HOA. We don't have an HOA. We're Battery Heights Neighborhood Association. And because of that, is this community lot now separating this neighborhood from our neighborhood, which was part of our neighborhood before. So if this becomes a whole new neighborhood, is this community lot, what does that look like? We would request that we have 30 to 60 days to defer so that we can actually find out the information of what Mr. Jones is proposing, because even that community lot area, I mean, it's a slope. It's like a straight slope. So what would that be used for? We generally just have questions. And in order to be able to find out that information, we need more time to be able to look at this, because we don't even understand the new zoning code, this RN13, RN16. And my understanding is that RN16 is a proposal, right? It's
No,
proposed
ma'am,
for
it
the
was,
area.
no, ma'am, it was already approved by city council. It just hasn't taken effect yet. But it's already been approved and passed unanimously by the council.
The actual zoning,
The new zoning code has
it
been,
says proposed on the
the-
website.
yes, ma'am, the RN16 equivalent, we're now going through a process called equivalency zoning, where you take whatever the current zone is. And a lot of these zones have more changed names than anything else. And there's a new formula for the letters. So the proposed R1 is now RN1. And then the other number is determined by the part of town that it's in.
So my understanding is the new zoning has been approved as far as the type of zoning, but the equivalency map is not yet approved for the area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have two sets of approval. We have one approval for the types of zoning, which would be the language we use to talk about it. And then we have another one where it's actually applied to certain areas. Because the proposal for RN16 was on the application as our intended new zoning, but it has not yet passed for our area, right? So we are still R1, correct?
That is technically correct as of today, but going from R1 to RN16 will not be treated like a rezoning case. It's equivalency mapping the entire city at once. So it's replacing these zones with these zones for the entire city.
Back to that because I feel like our community, at least, is still very unclear on this, and we're being asked to make a decision without accurate information or like even sort of consensus among people.
I think
the
confusion is there is no permission on this. Has already been done. All they're doing right now is going and say the current zoning would allow for this, so the new nomenclature would be whatever it is. So that basically what you're doing is saying a piece of property that can be developed in one way right now will still continue to be able to be developed that way once this is approved. So they're really not changing anything. It's just the letters.
But it is from 7,500 down to 6,000, right?
That's a citywide change.
That's already done.
Okay.
That's done.
All right. Well, we can get back to that, but I don't want to take up much time. I want him to talk a little bit too. So I have like a whole list of things I want to talk about: character of the neighborhood, slope, and things like that. But it doesn't feel fair to be able to do that without actually meeting with the developer and hearing what he has to say and allowing our community to have a say in that. So we ask that you defer. And then let me that. Unless you have any questions.
Any questions for this member of the opposition? Okay, the next member can move up, please.
Yes, my name is John Logan. I live at 2703 Fairview Drive here in Chattanooga. And the community lot he's talking about, it's undeveloped because it's just a slope. I mean, it's commercial grading. I know these things. And one of my concerns, at 4:30 every day, traffic at the bottom of our hill is backed up from New York Avenue all the way on Hillcrest School. It's over 2 miles. That's every day. You can't turn left out of our neighborhood in that thing. You can't hardly get out there in the morning. So pumping 25 houses, 50 more cars, not so 50 more cars. Trying to get out there. A lot of times to leave our neighborhood, we have to turn right, go all the way through East Chattanooga, get back to Howard today. It's not get out the hill now.
Thank you very much. I'll have the applicant come back up you've got up to 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
As you mentioned earlier, we do have a neighborhood meeting set up for this Thursday to help maybe answer some of those questions with the community. I would ask for that 30-day deferral so we can meet with the community and answer their questions and how this whole new zoning process is taking shape.
I think everyone agrees that would be wise. Councilman Ledford?
In the name of community communication, defer for 30 days.
All those in favor? All those opposed? We are deferred for 30 days. Thank you. Does anyone want to talk about Fairview Road anymore? Okay. We'll move on to the next case. Case 2024-0161. Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to case 2024-0162. Is there any opposition present for this case? Is the applicant present? Are you good with the condition? Come on up. Emily, you want to do a report?
This is case 2024-0162. It's a
I'm
request to
sorry,
rezone.
let's wait just a second while everybody exits. I'm sorry. Okay, so. Okay, thank you, Dan. Alan, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, Emily, staff report. Okay, Alan, go ahead.
Thing. So on this project, I did meet with the church, and they were good with our proposal, and also had lunch with the president of the Valley Brook Neighborhood Association, and they were good with our approach for this development. I would like to recommend two separate conditions instead of the one recommended by staff. The recommendation from staff was 8 dwelling units per acre. If you take the technical number, that would only give us 30. We're proposing 31. So we're asking for a maximum density of 31 units, and then the second condition would be that no multi-unit dwellings would be allowed. So that way it would just be single family and townhomes. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions for the applicant? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So those conditions were maximum 31 units and single family detached and townhomes only. Moving on to case 2024-0163. Is there any opposition here for this case? What's the will of the commission? Do I have a second? Second. I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to case 2024-0164. Is there any opposition present for this case? We do have opposition present. Emily, I have a note here that the applicant requests a deferral of 60 days, but can you give us a brief report on this one?
That's actually staff's recommendation.
That's staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So 2024-0164 is a rezone from R2 Rural Residential District to M1 Industrial District. This is in unincorporated Hamilton County. Proposed use for a storage facility on 2.9 acres. There's no M1 zoned property near the site. However, to the north, you can see that purple triangle was rezoned from A1 and R2A to M2 in 1996. And then to the south, the red C3 was rezoned from A1 and R2A to C3 in 2004. The site is surrounded primarily by single unit detached residential uses along Old Dayton Pike and vacant land across Dayton Pike. Here's a view of the site from Old Dayton Pike, the site from Dayton Pike. North of the site, some of the single family dwellings on Old Dayton Pike. Similarly, east of the site on Old Dayton Pike. There's a view of Dayton Pike, which is a 4-lane road. This is the site plan that was submitted, showing a storage facility. The request for M1 is not compatible with adjacent residential and agricultural land uses in development form. There's no M1 zone property near the site. There's also no land use plan to provide guidance related to introducing an industrial zone at this location. Staff is undergoing the Plan Hamilton process, where we will be providing new comprehensive plan for the entire county. And so with that, there should be a new place type recommendation. And so staff is recommending to defer for 60 days until those plans get adopted and we have more guidance from the community on changing the land use to a high intense industrial zone.
Any questions for staff? Todd?
Just a quick question relative to just for so we understand. M1 is the only county zone that allows outdoor storage. Is that correct?
Wasn't clear from the applicant's request if it's outdoor or indoor storage, but the M2 zone would allow some type of storage. I can read the uses.
I was just trying to make it felt like, and it's maybe true. Obviously, we've looked at doing some zoning regulation updates, and I guess my only comment is that if the only way you can do indoor outdoor storage is M1, I think that's such a high intensive use for a zone when you're.
I don't think that it is. It's just we didn't get enough information, so the applicant could provide more, and I could look at the other zones that might work.
It's mainly a comment, just that felt like it feels like a manufacturing zone is a very intense zone for storage. Thank you.
All right, is the applicant present? Come on up, please. You have 7 minutes to report. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Stuart Doss, and address is 9923 Blue Springs Road, Harrison, Tennessee. So our intended use for the property, and well, let me back up. I think that there are multiple zoning criteria for storage. I believe C2 is an acceptable zoning for indoor outdoor storage, and I actually submitted a comment when I saw that the staff recommended the deferral, and we're actually okay with C2. The property on the southern side of the residence adjacent to us is actually zoned commercial, and this property is located along the main corridor of Highway 27, which has, if you would have zoomed out a little bit more, there's M1. There's actually an M1 site just to the south of that, and there's M2 just to the north. So my only comment is I didn't agree fully with the deferral because this is a main corridor, and our plan is to provide access right off of Highway 27 onto our property, so that there wouldn't be any additional traffic to Old Dayton Pike. And it seems to be a commercial and industrial corridor already, and that was my comment. And it will be a mixed use of outdoor and indoor storage.
Is that all you have today? Any questions for the applicant? All right, opposition, please come up. You have a total of 9 minutes. Please state your name.
Okay. My name is Larry White. I live at 14181 Old Dayton Pike. I'm just south of this proposed site between it and the C3 area. And my concern was that if it was zoned manufacturing, that later on that probably could be sold. And you don't want to manufacture right next door. I worked construction for 43 years, and I know what a rock crusher can do to an area. And in fact, the one north of us, they have a portable crusher up there, and sometimes there's so much dust that you can't hardly see. And so that was my big concern, is not zone it for manufacturing. And and two, I had a concern about the traffic on Old Dayton Pike. Right now, we have a low amount of traffic, and of course, if he's going to get access to Highway 27, that would alleviate that problem. But that was my main concerns.
Thank you, sir. Come on up.
My name's Larry Austin. I live at 14307 Old Dayton Pike, which is land north of the property here. And of course, thank you for having me, but of course, we lived on the property 30 years. It's been residential and agricultural since the 1800s. The original house that sit on my property was built in 1800. So it's been residential and rural for that amount of time. The M1 manufacturing does bother me. Even C2, yes, but he's talking about going in off 27 highway. There's a wet weather creek. It runs all the way on the west end of that property. The creek comes right down the middle of my property, turns and goes to the highway and all the way down. So there's going to have to be culverts put in to let the water go through, or it'll back up on my property, which I don't think they should be able to do. And some of that property is really low. I don't know how they're even really going to build on it too much, because the northwest corner of that property is very, very low. There is a pond there, and I seen it on the picture. He showed the pond, but when my mother-in-law lives in that one house next door to it, and we had to move it 45 foot north just to get the ground to perk. So I'm concerned about the water going down that valley and where it's going to end up going once it gets over onto that property. If they fill in any at all, then it should more likely back it up on me, which I don't think is right. Excuse me. Like he was talking about the Mr. Rutledge across the street, he had his rezone, and when he did it, he told me he's going to build a building for his equipment and storage, but then he put a rock crusher in over there. And it's seriously times, it's not there right now, but there's times when he's crushing that rock, you can't see 27 highway. So if M1 goes through, they might be able to put something that in there, which I don't think there are. And there are 8 homes right around that area, right around that piece of property. And I don't think it'd be too much to put a business right in the middle of 8 homes. Now, to be honest with you, I have a part of my property. I have a spot zone commercial lot on my property. I own a business there, and I've been there since '98. So it is spot zone, but I have very little traffic. I'm retired. And and like I say, the old Dayton Pike, he says if he's going to eliminate that, he sure don't need a lot of property or traffic up and down old Dayton Pike. But another thing I'm concerned on the M1, the county bought the McDonald Farm for an industrial park. And I think that if you're going to put manufacturing in, it needs to go to that industrial park, not in the middle of a rural area that's been rural since 1800s. And the reason we bought our property when we bought it, me and my wife in '93, we had horses on it. They're all dead and gone now. But so it's always been rural up through there. And I think it needs to stay that way. And I thank you very much for your time and listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any question for the opposition? Okay, I'll have the applicant come back up. You have 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Just to voice or to address your comment about the stormwater backing up on you. So our plan is to put a highway in.
Sir, you need to address your comments to the commission.
Okay. So our plan is to put the Highway 27 access in, and it'll be designed by an engineer to allow the proper water flow. We did have an environmental assessment done, and we're going to be required to put stormwater retention on the property. So any of the disturbance that's done as a part of our development that creates stormwater will be retained on site. And as far as the stream goes that he's talking about that's coming onto us, that area is going to require a 30-foot buffer around the stream that actually enters onto us. And there's an old cattle pond that we're not going to be able to disturb as well, which will maintain a 30-foot buffer around it as a part of our development. That's all.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. The stream, has it been designated as waters of the state?
I don't think it's been designated as waters of the state, but it has been designated as a stream that we are not allowed to disturb.
Okay. Second part of that question is earlier you stated that maybe C2 might be a better zone. Did we have any confirmation on that from staff if that is allowed?
C2 allows storage garages. As Todd mentioned, outdoor storage and storage in general is not clearly defined in the Hamilton County zoning ordinance. And so I believe it's been the interpretation of the building department that C2, C3, and M1 and M2 could allow it, but it's not specifically listed as a use. So I would recommend that if we're recommending to defer, that we meet with the applicant in the county just to verify if there was a different zone. Because I wouldn't want him to get a zone approved and then he get to building permitting and find out that they wouldn't allow that storage in that zone.
Sure. And that's the intent of the deferral for 60 days.
Well, it was also just because we didn't have a land use plan to provide guidance. So we wanted to see what, when the plans get adopted, what would be recommended for this area.
Sir, you had it.
Sorry, one other thing I wanted to mention is that Brian is currently working on cleaning up the language specifically around indoor and outdoor storage right now. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to go to county commission, but I know that that is in the works currently.
Sir, you had indicated that you disagreed with the deferral for 60 days, which we take very seriously. Can you state why, if there is a...
Yeah, so we're in process of doing a 1031 exchange and from another property into this property, which requires us to start breaking ground in a timely manner. And
So you scheduled a 1031 before rezoning?
Yes.
Wow.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, I've done one of those. That's, yeah. No. Okay. Yeah, I do have to say that I think that the gentlemen are correct with the M1 and the use. I think that I would love to see a different option.
Can we restrict an M1? Can we limit the uses of it? Condition the zoning to the intended purpose only?
Mr. Lehman.
I was only going to add, and I think the biggest issue, I think probably with the opposition is an M1 zone in that location, even if it is restricted. I would almost ask, understanding that, are we sure indoor and outdoors not allowable in C3? And that's what Brian is clearing up. It'd be great to be able to go for both a zoning regulation and amendment, and then allow this maybe under a C3. The only other thing I was going to offer to Mr. Payne's point is you could do an M1 conditioned on indoor outdoor storage and access only to 27, or you could do a C3 limiting access, and then the county commission could take, as long as they know that was kind of the deliberation from a planning commission for recommendation, the county commission then could take a different route in 30 days, which that would try to keep everything on par. That's kind of my thought. It's a little hard to do a C3, recommend a C3, and then put the county commission on the hook to have to do an M1 because it's not allowable. I wish we kind of had that information, but I do agree with the point that we need to work on our antiquated zoning regulations, or at least deal with some inaccuracies. But that's my only point. I think I'd be willing at this point either or.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve M1 with the conditions that it has to be a storage facility as shown, and limit the access to Dayton Pike and no access on the old Dayton Pike.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Commissioner Payne, do you also want to add outdoor storage? Because I think you said indoor and outdoor storage.
Yes, sir. It's going to be a mix of non-climate controlled, climate controlled, and then any free green space would be used to do uncovered boat and RV. Correct. And I think there is some guidelines on putting the covering on the fencing. I know in some of the zoning there is, and we would be okay with moving forward if that was a requirement. We could put the barrier on the fencing for visual.
Yeah, I'll second that motion and only add the comment to the opposition. Thank you for being here. And this is a recommendation of the county commission, so this is not taking action, but it will come in front of the county commission for the same type of discussion. So I second.
Barry, can you restate the conditions in your motion?
And I'll second and only say that this is good deliberation for county commission. And if building inspection can clarify a different zone relative to indoor and outdoor storage prior to county commission, I think that we'll make sure we offer that different zone.
All right, any other discussion? On the motion, all those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Case 2024-0165. Is there any opposition here for this case? Is the applicant here?
Mr. Chair, staff did receive some opposition in writing.
Okay, let's go ahead and have the report on this one.
Case 2024-165, to rezone from R1 residential zone to RN3 residential neighborhood zone for single unit detached dwellings. It's for 2 acres, 11 units, and a 5.4 dwelling unit per acre density. There's been several R1 PUDs approved in the area from 2006 through 2018. Site is surrounded by vacant land and single unit detached dwellings off of Webb Road. It's a picture of the site. This is east of the site across Webb Road, a subdivision. South of the site is an aerial view. North of the site, more single family subdivision. Another view north. This is in the Highway 58 land use plan, which recommends low density residential, which was adopted in 2003. This is a view of the site plan. The request is not compatible with the density recommendations listed in the plan, which recommends 1 to 4 units per acre, and with the adjacent development form due to the smaller lot sizes. The RN16 zone, which will be the equivalency mapping zone, is more appropriate because lot sizes, lot widths, and density is more compatible with the suburban residential form of the area. Staff recommends to deny.
Any questions for staff? Joseph, come on up. You've got 7 minutes.
Hi, Joseph Ingram, Ingram Bowen Associates. I wasn't planning on having this case. The owner is out of town. But I will say it's almost the same as what Alan talked about a minute ago. He's probably going to talk about again. Is the RN13. It's actually probably the R1 PUD equivalent. This property is surrounded, that the open space surrounding it is R1 PUDs. And so what we're trying to do, we're trying to build exactly the same lots that are in the R1 PUDs adjacent to it. And we probably jumped a little bit. We should have stayed under 5. And that would be a condition we would suggest that we would do. We'd cut down to keep the density under 5 an acre, kind of match the R1 PUDs that surround the property.
Joseph, can you say that again? You're offering a condition. Can you state it again?
So we show 11 lots, and we jumped the density. We should have. I did the drawing. I should have paid better attention. I should have stayed under 5 units per acre. And if we were 5, we would basically match the R1 PUDs that surround. You can see the whole thing's surrounded by R1 PUDs, and so we're just trying to match what's in the area, build the exact same product, but really it'd probably be more palatable if we stayed under 5 units an acre. And so that would be a condition we would offer.
Okay, thank you. And there's no opposition present. We did have some email. What's the will of the commission on this one?
A question for staff real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
You said the low density in this area plan is 1 to 4 units per acre, and the previous area plan it was up to 5 units per acre. I think on a previous case in another area plan.
The density numbers vary from plan to plan.
Is that something we're looking at standardizing as we move forward with the new area plans?
I believe so.
Okay.
It will be based on the place type, and place types will be consistent across the whole city and then across the whole county.
What's the will of the commission?
I'll just say I think it's great to have housing choice and have the ability for somebody to buy a smaller house when it's a desirable area, so I will move to approve with the applicant condition.
All right, we have a motion to approve with the applicant condition of no more than 5 units per acre. All those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Case 2024-0166.
The applicant withdrew this request, meeting our deadline prior to the meeting. So we will not hear that today.
So no action is needed because
No.
we got okay, made the deadline. Got it. Case number 2024-0167. Is there any opposition present for this case? What's the will of the commission? Oh, this one's, let's have a report on this one.
Case 2024-167. The next 3 are all very similar, just in different locations, but similar staff recommendation in the same applicant. So if you want me to do all 3 separately, I can, or just do the one and
Let's
see.
do this first one first.
So request to rezone from R1 residential zone to the new TRN3 traditional residential neighborhood zone for single unit detached dwellings. So the acres are 0.14. Staff believes that the number of units proposed is 2 units. However, we did have questions with all 3 submittals, and I'll get into that during the staff recommendation. That may affect the number of units and the density of 14.28 dwelling units per acre. There's no recent zoning history for the site. There is also no multifamily zoning near the site, which the applicant's proposing. So it's on North Chamberlain Avenue, surrounded by single unit detached dwellings, a church, and a parking lot. It's a view of the site. Another view of the site. This is the church north of the site. Some of the detached dwellings south of the site. Similarly, west of the site. This is in the historic Riveter Ridge land use plan, was adopted in 2020, which recommends the urban residential single family overlay. So you can see that there. The single family overlay is just as it sounds. It recommends single family detached dwellings only and accessory dwelling units. No other form of housing, including multifamily, is recommended to maintain the single family historic character of the neighborhood. So these are the plans that were submitted. This site plan is showing 1 dwelling unit. However, in the applicant's narrative, they said they were proposing 2 units on 1 lot. So staff had reached out multiple times to find out what is the actual proposal. Is it a single family dwelling with an accessory dwelling unit, or is it 2 detached houses on 1 lot that would function like multifamily, since they've asked for multifamily? Or do they intend to subdivide 1 lot into 2 to make 2 detached lots, or 2 lots with 2 detached dwellings? And we were not able to get any information from the applicant for all 3 of these cases. So the request for the multifamily TRN3 is not compatible with the Area 3 plan, adjacent land uses and development form. As mentioned, we couldn't complete the review because of the inconsistencies with the application materials. And the TRN3 zone allows heights up to 50 feet for multifamily units and up to 45 dwelling units an acre density. And so while the site area of 0.14 acres would equate to no more than 6 to 7 dwelling units, the zone is still not appropriate at this location due to its intensity. And even the 6 to 7 dwelling units is not in compliance with the single family overlay of the plan. So the RN13 or the RN15, which the 5 is what the site will be equivalency mapped to, are more appropriate because they would allow the single family dwellings with the potential of an accessory dwelling unit, keep the building height to 35 feet, which is compatible with the area, similar with the setbacks and density and plan recommendation. So staff recommends to deny.
Is the applicant present? Come on up, please.
So our plan, so originally when we submitted this, it was, we didn't get the application done. It was going to be for the RTZ zoning, which we've had success with these plans doing, because we have the lot has street access on either end. So the plan is to build a single family dwelling on the opposite end of where the existing house is, and then we would subdivide, keeping keeping the existing house there, adding the second one where it has street view on the other end. So the intention isn't to do multifamily with like building up. It would be a small single family home, and that would be the same for all three lots. For we have 3 applications.
Emily, is there a zone that accomplishes this other than TRN3
Yes, RN13 and RN15.
with what she's saying with subdividing the lot after?
I don't know what the proposed lot sizes are. We didn't get that, so I don't know where they're going to put the lot line. But those would be 2 single family zones that would allow a detached single family dwelling. Had we met in person, we could have gone over those zones, but I don't have that information.
Ma'am, I think you're probably headed for some denials from this planning commission due to lack of information. However, you do have the option to request a deferral.
Yeah, can we do a 30-day
or withdraw and resubmit.
Would it be better to resubmit at the other? Can I change the?
If you withdraw and resubmit, you can resubmit for different zones. That's correct.
Okay.
Good. It would take a little more.
It would just go through the process again as a new application, be assigned a new case number because she's applying for a new zone that hasn't been advertised.
Yeah, okay. How important is time to you?
Well, if there wouldn't be a path forward to get it approved at this zoning request, then at the TN to whatever the request is for. I think the best route would be to resubmit. At the, or what was the new zone that you're suggesting?
They have very small lots. They're gonna have to be R13.
RN13.
Yeah, I just did 0.14 and I get 6,098. So you could do 2,000-3,000. Looks like. But I don't know what the other ones are. That's just the number I heard.
Or the other option is don't rezone, don't subdivide, keep the existing house and build a detached or attached accessory dwelling unit is another option too.
That's
that we
correct.
could go over with the applicant.
Okay. Nathan, did you have a question?
She can withdraw and do that now and apply for a building permit and not rezone.
2
Yes.
questions.
Yes, Nathan, go ahead.
The ADU is limited to 800 square feet, is that correct? And they're proposing like 960, I think, so there'd be a change to their floor plan, which may be acceptable. The other point I wanted to make is with the straight RN13 subdivision, we don't know where the existing house sits and if that might encroach on the RN13 boundaries. So we're going to need to see that before we can approve it.
So
That's correct. We'll need a new site plan with the dimensions and legal boundaries designating that so that we can, make sure the house doesn't encroach.
go ahead.
Just a question too. Sorry, Chairman. What's the equivalency for R2? Does anybody know?
RN2.
So if she wanted to subdivide and to Nathan's point, which is important depending on where the house is, if they could get the 3, she'd still have to rezone, right? If she wanted to do 2 single lots.
Yeah.
I got you. Thank you.
This body merely makes a recommendation to the Chattanooga City Council. My advice, based on doing this for a while, would be to withdraw and resubmit.
Okay.
But you are free to do that, to ask for a withdrawal, or we can vote on approving it or denying it.
If you deny it, if we deny it, you'll have to wait for a long time.
12 months before you go. Is it 12 or 9 months?
12 at city, if city council denies, not if planning commission.
I'll withdraw then.
Second. I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. We don't need a report, but let's go to case 2024-0059. Do I have a motion?
That's actually a typo. It should be 168.
Oh, sorry, 0168 for the record. I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? The ayes have it. Case number 2024-0169. Do I have a motion? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. And that takes us through all of our rezonings today. Hi, Gail. We are going to move on to mandatory referrals. Case M 2024-0170. We have approved with conditions. Can you show the conditions up there, Emily, on the screen?
Yes, these conditions were based on the applicant's site plan and narrative where they said that through the property exchange, they were going to construct a footpath. So we just put it into codified version as a condition.
All right, Gail, is that all right with you? All right.
Second.
I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Oh, I'm sorry. We have opposition to this case. Sorry, I apologize. We normally don't have those for mandatory referrals. But please come on. There was no vote. Please come on up. Opposition. And just so we're clear, this declares the property surplus from the city of Chattanooga, which enables the city to sell it. That's a mandatory
That's
referral.
right. Yes.
Okay. Please state your name, and you have 9 minutes.
Okay. My name is Farron Kilburn. I'm at 214 Jarnigan Avenue. And I'm involved with the Baker Hilltop Neighborhood Association where this exchange will take place. I just want to say that this land exchange addresses a premium slice of Chattanooga city-owned land that has functioned as a historic overlook for most people in Chattanooga. If you're familiar with the site plan, you probably have been there. It is the namesake of our neighborhood association, Baker Hilltop. The application was originally brought forth earlier in winter 2024 and was withdrawn after a neighborhood association meeting where neighbors expressed concern that a land exchange that includes about 20 feet of public land at the top of Baker Street with a low-grade slope at the top is with a parcel of land that is on a steep slope on the lower side of the hill closer to Fraser. As a compromise with the city and community residents, the private property owners, Dr. Kimsey and Mrs. Kimsey, said that for a more equitable exchange, the community requested a footpath to Fraser and preservation of a remaining overlook of the city land that remains after this exchange. The contingency of the exchange is that the private landowners would fund a footpath on remaining public land with architectural drawings and completion before a certificate of occupancy, which is all in the documents today. And I want to thank our Councilwoman Jenny Hill and also the private landowners, Dr. Kimsey and Mrs. Kimsey, to working with the neighborhood on this particular project and to agree that the swap would include a footpath. I would recommend in your renderings today that the footpath be the green line that's in the illustration that's at the bottom. The reason for this is that the city has worked with the neighborhood association for years now on what would be a great footpath. And that one was recommended by architects that have worked with the city, particularly Matt Whitaker, who said that for accessibility, that's the gentlest slope on the hillside that would work for people and residents all over the North Shore, and also for the private owners at the properties near there, including the potential future housing for the Kimseys to respect their privacy, that slope would work really well for a footpath. So I'm just bringing that to the attention of the committee, or if it needs to be in the notes at all. Our concern as a neighborhood association is also the remaining city land that's not up for right now, but historically the city has actually promised to not sell this land to the neighborhood association. I know things change through different administrations. We understand that. And so we plan as a neighborhood to move forward with rezoning the remaining city property as the new zone of open space so that this historic overlook can be preserved. And if it goes away, the connectivity from North Shore down the street would add a mile of walking. It's a gateway to Fraser for most North Shore who likes to walk down Jarnigan Street. And if that is completely closed off, everyone has to go down Baker and over to Barton, and it's very dangerous to walk on Barton if you've been over there. So while it is not in the actual documents, I didn't see that there was any kind of contingency in this trade of saying that the remaining city property be preserved or rezoned as open space. If that's something that's able to be added, we would advocate for that. If it's not able to be added, then we would love to work with our city councilwoman and this committee to rezone the remaining property to open spacing.
I can tell you that since the city owns the property, the city would have to initiate any rezoning of it. It could not happen in this meeting.
Sure, I understand that. And we would love to work with the city on that. Again, I believe that different administrations change and that things that have been told to the Kimseys historically and also the neighborhood association historically have conflicted. I'm not blaming any individual for that. I think things get lost over years and communication. So anyway, I just want to say thank you to everyone for working together, and also that who reviews, my question for you all is who reviews the architectural plans and the contingency of the footpath? And because it is on city land, can the neighborhood be involved in the final approval of the plans of the footpath?
Those questions cannot be answered today by this body, but I would encourage you to continue working with Councilwoman Hill for those questions about review, and I will speak to her as well to make sure we get you that information.
Okay. Any others?
Anyone else in opposition? Before you start, sir, sorry, Councilman Ledford, you had a question?
Yes, just for the record, you're not in opposition. You're just wanting more involvement.
I'm we're not in opposition to it, but we are in support of the contingencies, and the contingencies maybe being expanded upon as approval. Does that make sense? Like the contingency.
You're not in opposition of us declaring it surplus today, which is what we're doing.
Yeah, we don't want to declare it the surplus, but can a contingency be a little bit more detailed instead of just a footpath? Because anything can be a footpath. Can it say working with the neighborhood association for approval on the footpath? That's what we would like to request.
And speaking of paths, Councilwoman Hill, you're on the right one right there. For sure. Yes. Definitely. Thank you.
Yes, sir. State your name for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Matthew Craig. I'm at 221 Jarnigan Avenue. And I am in opposition of this proposal, mostly because it's not a straight swap. Although it is square footage wise, it's a straight land swap with another parcel down on Fraser. But like we're looking at 50 feet of elevation. So it's kind of like you get to live in the penthouse and I get to walk through the basement, you know. I just don't feel like it's equitable, and especially without the contingencies that Farron mentioned, it's just not equitable. For that reason, I'm opposed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions from the commission? If you can come up to the podium, please. When you get to the podium, can you say your name and address so we'll catch it on the recording?
Yeah, Frank Kimsey. I currently reside at 1511 Carroll Lane, across the street behind GPS. I appreciate everybody's input. We do want to be good neighbors, and I'm not from New York. We initially put up this land trade proposal was actually initiated before I even purchased the land back in 2019. And our purchase of the land was contingent on this transfer of land. It was an abandoned piece of property by the state of Tennessee that was on the city of Chattanooga's right of way. So it's in city of Chattanooga's best interest to get their right of way back and not have another billboard on Fraser Avenue. And we felt it was also in the best interest of our neighbors. If we are able to increase the footprint of the build property, then we don't have to build higher and block their view. When we noticed some opposition when the first yellow sign was put up, we immediately withdrew our proposal, and we met with the Baker Hill Neighborhood Association, and we met with Fair Hills Neighborhood Association. I've been working very closely with Jenny Hill. And I appreciate her efforts and the city's efforts in making this happen. And we discussed the different paths. We didn't want to get into, if you will, the tar baby with, spending $100,000 on architecture design. I'm not a developer. I'm a private citizen. We're doing all the plans ourselves, and we can work with you on coming up with an equitable solution. We already are talking about the lower footpath because I think that makes more sense to me. Also, we want to work with Jenny on access to the intersection at the bridge where there's a safe place to actually cross Fraser Avenue. Because right now that current footpath is less safe to cross. And as you know, we had a couple of fatalities here last year with the safety of Fraser Avenue. So our position was that by doing this land trade, that it was equitable because there'd be not another billboard on Fraser Avenue, and we wouldn't have to build up and block our neighbor's view. At the city's request, we also had 2 appraisals. We had an initial appraisal done in 2020 when we purchased the property, and we went back and had another appraisal done this year for the 4,100 square feet. And the appraiser in kind, 2 pieces of property are in fact equitable value monetary wise. So hopefully that addresses some of those concerns.
All right. Any questions from the commission? Gail, do you want to come to the podium and offer any more information? Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Gail Hart, City of Chattanooga Real Property Office. The one thing I would like to add is when Dr. Kinsey applies for his land disturbance permit, it will be required that the footpath be in that, and the CO will not be issued until the footpath is also completed to the standards that we require.
Okay. Thank you, Gail.
Do you have any other questions?
Any questions for Gail? Councilman Ledford?
Gail, you've been sitting here all afternoon. I'd hate to see you not at least get a question. So can you talk about the planning stage and the involvement of neighborhood association?
Okay, there was a neighborhood meeting. I was not in attendance. Richard Beelan was there. I was not able to attend that night. And the neighborhood and Dr. Kinsey agreed to the footpath. It will be the lower path that comes from Dalton to Fraser. You can see it on the drawing. It's the lower alternative. It is to be constructed as something that requires no maintenance, something like cross ties, treated lumber, something that will be there and will be there to stay. It will not be gravel.
Okay. And this has already been designed. We have specs and ready to go.
There are not specifications. Councilwoman Hill said they are not required to do architectural drawings, that we can work this out with conversations during construction. Dr. Kinsey has been in communication with Blythe Bailey in Parks and Outdoors, and he will construct it in coordination with his standards.
Okay. So anybody who has an interest or concern about the path forward, there I go again, will need to, can reach out to you and Councilwoman Hill?
To me and Councilwoman Hill, that will be fine.
Okay. Doors open.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Any other questions from the commission? Sure. Come on up. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on this case? Okay.
I had not. Can you hear me? Because I couldn't hear half of what went on today.
Yes, sir. Please state your
It's
name and
Bill
address.
Matthews. I reside at 1006 Centennial Heritage Landing. I own about 15 properties up there. Used to own 20. I'm in full support of Dr. Kinsey's swap. I think it makes sense. I think it's reasonable. And I do understand the possibilities of problems with the pathway, but I take everyone at their word that this is exactly what's going to happen. And sometimes you just have to put the trust up and go with it. I just came to see what was going to happen, but it makes a lot of sense to swap. So that's over. That's done. It's just a pathway that I understand. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's in context here because I'm getting old. Bottom line is clear. I think he's going to do a good job with it. I think he's tried to do everything properly So I'm in support of the path that they've chosen.
Thank you, sir.
But I would say one thing, and because it's just my nature, and I apologize. The smartest thing to do is to put the path down the middle. Therefore, it would never be developed. And you'd still have some open space with a long walk. And I contemplated what the cost might be for that. And I thought I might pitch in, but since it's up in the air, I'm not going to commit. But if the path went to section B or plan B, that would require a lot more along the lines of cost, I'm sure. Yes. But that would solve a lot of the neighborhood concerns that I've heard for 35 years. I'm sort of mad at myself for getting up here and talking because I wasn't planning on it.
Please don't be. You've helped
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you very much. The previous vote and motion I'll declare invalid because I did not ask for opposition. So we are at a blank slate now. Do I have a motion on this case?
Move to approve the conditions.
All right, I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to case MR 2024-0171, which is a companion case to this one. What's the will of the commission? Move to approve. Have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. All right, so we have now we're to section C now, resolutions and amendments. A resolution to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, Chattanooga zoning regulations. So Karen, if you would like to take the wheel at this point, I believe you're presenting.
I don't have a full presentation. We did touch on this last month during the staff updates. We presented a slide saying that with some proposed amendments, there was a commitment from Planning Commission and the city to do a first quarter amendment or review for the period after the new zoning ordinance was effective. That is still planned for January. However, just as we've been using it and as staff and as people have been using the ordinance and going through the equivalency mapping process, we did identify some needed changes. All those were covered last month. They were identified on a slide. We did add a couple more housekeeping items and some land use items. I'm happy to go through those again if you'd like. And these do include removing the public notification for the administrative modification process. That's a 10% modification of a standard. So, that could be inches, feet, but that was determined to not do the public process for that in order to not gear up the permitting department. We're recommending removing that now. So there's several items, kind of a chunk of section regarding that. As you know, we were also asked by council to add in a suburban infill lot compatibility option for the RN1 7.5 zone. That's also in here. And there's several, the item on the second page of the amendment packet is related to the suburban infill lot compatibility option. There's also a series of actions regarding removing development standards for now. As you remember last month, we mentioned there's some development design standards. We are removing a few for now, again, so we're not having to gear up for permitting, but we did make a commitment to look at those first of the year. So we chose ones that had been commented on by our third-party SME review from Opticos Design that also received feedback from during the original development and stakeholder review of the zoning ordinance. So those remove some of the facade requirements where perhaps they're not quite as objective as they need to be. And then that also removes some standards, some language for the single unit detached regarding dwellings having an interest from a facade facing the street. Just said that's not really always the Chattanooga vernacular. We might have a door that's on the side, but the porch faces the street. So we just decided to clean that up a little bit. That'll be a review for January. We also added some uses. So part of the the zoning map, the equivalent zoning map, is to try to find the most equivalent zone in the new zoning ordinance from the old zoning ordinance. So in doing that, we determined that we needed to add a few more uses to the use table in order to make sure that we were addressing equivalency appropriately. One of the last items is, and I believe this was my fault in the final review of changing some of the last edits, the landscaping buffer table had an incorrect references. So we've gone through, and it didn't change the intent, but it did change the references for the, and I believe that is primary it. There was a couple as a cleanup for clarifying for townhomes, grouping of townhomes versus number of townhomes you can have in a development. That Brian felt that was something that needed clarification for permitting. And again, so it's kind of started a process and then some cleanup at the end. So it comes just to be clear on who's doing notification, but those are the primary changes in the ordinance.
Any questions from the commission for Karen? What's the will of the commission? I have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, can I just confirm that this is not the first quarter that we've committed to? I just want to be clear. This was just to make sure that really we didn't gear up permitting and to remove some things that we just had some questions about so we can do a better job kind of first of the year on those. So just want to be clear that is still in the plan. We will still talk about those changes with Planning Commission in the upcoming months.
That's right. We will be coming back with more every quarter next year.
That's correct. Thank you.
Right. Is anyone here who wishes to make public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none. Yes, sir.
This is something I've been thinking about the past couple weeks since Hurricane Helene hit, and thinking about major storm events. Helene was 1,000, maybe 2,000 year storm, and our stormwater regulations, something that comes up in every meeting. Whenever somebody wants to deny something, they point to stormwater, and we rightly say we don't regulate that. That's regulated through other means. But most of the regulations on the books only cover up through the 100-year storm event. And so I am just openly asking the question. I don't have any real idea, any recommendations myself. It's just something that I think we should be thinking about as a planning body. How do we take these larger storm events into account and larger natural disasters into account as we do planning? I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and I just think it's something that we need to keep towards the front of our mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Anyone else?
I'll just say one thing. Thanks for reaching out to staff. It did appear that building inspection thinks that indoor outdoor storage is appropriate C2 or C3. I don't know if y'all checked that. So I think that was the intent of everything we had discussion wise. So if y'all can just present that relative to county commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Councilman Ledford, I believe you have a motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Barry, do I have any other motions? We are adjourned. Thank you.